Hey, it's Vicky, and I am here to talk about the books I read in July. I am filming in my bedroom today because we are basically painting our entire downstairs of our house. And so though I'm not painting my library room, I still really like that color, so we're not changing that. But a lot of stuff is currently shoved into that room, and so I can't film in there right now. So I wanted to get this video out because I do like to get my wrap-ups out early on in the month, so I'm filming in here today. In July, I read 7 things. It was a pretty good month. Most of my reads were via audio, so that's interesting. And I did have 2 DNFs, so let's dive in. So the first book that I DNF'd in July, I feel sort of bad about because it was a book that was sent to me for review. And so I feel like when books are sent to me for review, I should finish them regardless. However, at the same time, had the book not been sent to me, I would have reviewed it, or I would not have finished it. And then I also felt like if I pushed myself to finish the book, it was gonna get a horrible rating anyway, because I was not having a good time. And that book is A Reservoir Man by L.J. Ambrosio. And I DNF'd this book. I was about halfway through it, and I had to give up because the writing was not good. I did not enjoy it. There was a lot of telling in the book and just not enough showing. There were way too many characters introduced, and then 2 pages later they were gone again. It was just very chaotic, and I was not having a good time, and I was gonna try to push through, and Austin was like, why are you forcing yourself to read this book if you don't like it? You know, just because it was sent to you for review. That in itself is a review if you could not finish the book. So I agreed with him, and here I am. I DNF'd it. I would not recommend it, unfortunately. The other book that I DNF'd in July is Text Me When You Get Home by Kayleen Schaefer. I made it 47 pages into this, and it just wasn't holding my attention. I thought it was gonna be good because it's about female friendships, and that was interesting to me. It's a nonfiction book, and but just the kind of stuff she was talking about in the book and writing about, it was very pop culture heavy, which I usually like. But I guess in this instance, I don't know, it just wasn't jiving. It wasn't jiving with me, and I was pretty bored, so I DNF'd it. The first book that I did manage to complete in July was a little novella. I believe this is classified as a novella that I listened to on audio, and it was called Red at the Bone by Jacqueline Woodson, and the audiobook was narrated by, there were quite a few narrators, so I don't have them all listed, but I got the audiobook from my library, and it is basically just a kind of a literary fiction about this family and how there is like a daughter in the story who is about to be, I think she's like 16, and she's having like her coming out party, celebration, whatever you want to call it, and you're getting kind of her perspective, and most of the book is about how she was born when her mom was 16, I believe, 15 or 16. She was quite young. She was a teen mom, and how that her mother being a teen mom and having a child at that age affected her, and how it affected this girl's growing up, and how it kind of just affected the family. And what was really good about this was you got so many perspectives, even though it was such a short story. You got perspectives from, I want to say it was like 5 different people, which might seem a little bit much for such a short story, but I thought it just lent so much to like the layers of the story, because you were seeing this kind of family event from so many different angles. And Jacqueline Woodson is such an amazing writer. I have only read her middle grade stuff, and so this was my first time reading like something that she wrote for adults, and it really delivered. It was just, the writing is so poetic and beautiful. The audiobook, like I said, had multiple narrators. It was very well done. And it was a quick listen because, like I said, it's a pretty short story. But if you like just sort of like family dramas with multiple perspectives. I think you should read it. I gave it 4 stars. The next book that I finished in July was also an audiobook that I got through Audible, and it was an anticipated release for me that I've been meaning to read, so I was excited to pick it up, and that book was Take My Hand by Dolan Perkins Valdez. It was narrated by Lauren, I can't read my writing, Lauren J. Daggett, I believe is what I wrote down, sorry. And this book was about a nurse, and it kind of goes back and forth in time. There's a story in the past that's going on in the 70s in Alabama, and then the other storyline is 2016, 2017, I want to say. And you're getting the perspective of this nurse. So you're seeing her as an older woman, retired woman, but then it goes back to the 70s when she was first starting out in the profession as a nurse. And she gets this case to go to the home of these 2 young girls to give them birth control. And these girls are 11 and 13. And so that right there kind of jars her a little bit. Why are they being given birth control so young, especially when they, said they weren't sexually active and things. And I should note that these girls are poor and they are black. And our main character, what is her? I can't remember what her name is. Sybil? I think her name was Sybil. She was also black. And the story kind of goes from there because she starts to kind of dive into like why are these girls being given, this birth control, and the story evolves into this whole other thing that was very eye-opening, very heartbreaking, and what made it more so was that the book was based on a true story, that there were really these 2 young girls in Alabama in the 70s that this book was based off of their story, their case. Though I'm sure, I'm pretty sure that Dolan Perkins Valdez took some liberties with the plot and things like that, but it was inspired by true events, and it was such a sad story. There were parts, one scene in particular, I choked up because it was just horrible that something like this could go on in this country, and did go on, in real life. And also given the current political climate in terms of the overturning of Roe v. Wade, this book also hit me differently. Coming off of that news, I read this pretty early in the month, so coming off of that news, it was still kind of fresh, and so reading this, I was reading it through different eyes, I think, and so it was very good, hard-hitting, but I think an important read, especially given the subject matter and things, so it was really good. I highly recommend it. It was a 4-star. The next 2 books that I read, I also listened to an audio. So as you can see, I did a lot of audio books this month. But I read 2 books for a reading vlog that I did this month. I read The Buried by Melissa Gray and The Girls Are Never Gone by Sarah Glenn Marsh. And they were 2 YA horror novels that I had intended to read or wanted to read last summer and did not. So I wanted to read them this summer and vlog about it. So I ended up giving The Buried 2 stars. I didn't really like it that much. And The Girls Are Never Gone was a 4-star read. I actually did really like that one. But if you want my full thoughts and everything on those 2 books, go check out my reading vlog. All right, next up I read What the Hell Did I Just Read by David Wong, and this fulfilled the Buzzword Reading Challenge for me for July, to read a book with bookish words in the title, so read I went with. And this is the 3rd book in the John Dies at the End series, and I don't know if there's going to be any more, but this is, I think it's classified as cosmic horror, because it says right here, a novel of cosmic horror, and these books are just crazy. It's about these 2 guys, Dave and John, and they, in the first book, so in the beginning of the series, they get a hold of this drug called soy sauce. And when they take it, they are able to see things like paranormal type of things, interdimension type of things that other people can't. And so the series, it sort of evolves around them seeing these things and kind of having to like save the day a lot and save their town from these things that a lot of the people don't even realize is going on. And so that's another, this is another installment of that. And it's so funny, first of all. It's just my kind of humor. I think that John is absolutely hilarious. But it also has some great horror elements. Like there was some stuff in here that was pretty creepy, pretty gross. So it's like, it's icky. It is horrifying, but it's also fun. And there was like, basically the plot in this one is that this little girl goes missing. And the circumstances under her, under which she went missing are really weird. And so the cops call Dave and John in, like, hey, we think we might need your help with this. And yeah, they were right. There is like something weird about this kidnapping. And so the twist at the end of this, if you want, I would definitely call it a twist, was pretty cool. I have to say, I did like it. And the way it ended was pretty cool. So the only sort of thing about this was there's a character in here named Amy who has been in the books the whole time, I believe. And for some reason in this book, she was just getting on my nerves. I don't know. I was just not understanding her perspective at all. And she was just kind of annoying. So yeah, this definitely was not the best book in the series. I think my favorite one actually might be the second one, but this one was still fun and I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. The next book that I finished in July, I physically read also, woo, finally, a physically read book. I read The House Across the Lake by Riley Sager. This was an anticipated thriller. I have read all of Riley Sager's books and I wanted to read this one. Last summer's release was not it for me. I did not enjoy that one very much. So I was a little apprehensive going into this one. But I ended up liking it. It's about a girl named, wow, I can't remember her name, Casey? I believe her name's Casey. Anyways, she is recently widowed. She lost her husband and she goes to her family's lake house to sort of recharge and get it together because she is not doing so well. And she has a couple of neighbors on the lake. The way it's kind of situated, there's one person next door to her and then there's 3 other houses across the lake. And the house in the middle across the lake from her, there is a married couple living there. And one day Casey, sees the woman drowning in the lake. And so she saves her and they sort of become friends. And then that woman goes missing. And so Casey has been, kind of spying on them with her binoculars looking across the lake. And so she wants to figure out what happened to this woman and play detective and all of that. And I actually did, like I said, I did enjoy this one. It was a little bit slow, but I didn't mind it. I really liked the setting, the whole lake thing. I just really was jiving with. I'm like, I kind of want to go to this lake house and hang out. There is a twist in this one though, that when it happened, I didn't think it was real at first. Like I was like, is Riley Sager messing with me? Like, and I was kind of like, I don't believe it. But then as it went on, I was like, oh, no, this is like a real thing. Oh, okay. All right. We're going to go with it. We're going to go with it. And I just kind of went with it, went along for the ride, and it was pretty good. It was pretty good. Kind of came out of left field, especially for Riley Sager, but it was good. There was one kind of little part in the end that I was not totally for, but overall, I thought it was pretty enjoyable. So I gave it 3 stars. Was not as bad as Survive the Night. And if I had to rank it, it would probably fall somewhere in the middle. My favorite book is still Home Before Dark, followed by Lock Every Door, and then probably Final Girls, and then this one maybe? This one and like The Last Time I Lied are kind of on the same. Yeah. So anyway, this wasn't horrible. I know it's had kind of mixed reviews. I just kind of was in the middle on it, 3 stars. And then the last book I read in July was the best book I read in July. And I listened to this one on audio as well via Scribd, and it was narrated by the author. And that book was Don't Cry for Me by Daniel Black. And this book is about a man named Jacob who is dying of cancer, and he is writing his son Isaac a series of letters because they are estranged, mainly because Isaac is gay and Jacob has never supported that. He's always had issue with that, and it has strained their relationship. And he's writing him these letters, and what I loved about that format, first of all, was that you never saw or heard Isaac's perspective or responses. It was just Jacob, and I think what made it work so well was that a lot of the things that Jacob reveals to his son and talks about, I don't think he would have or could have said face to face or even on the phone or something like that. It was like, because he was writing it down, he was able to share more. So you have this, and he talks about, obviously, his life, what it was like growing up. He grew up in the South, and he's a black man. His family, his ancestors were slaves. So he talks a lot about the black experience, what it's like to be a black man in this country, especially when you're talking about masculinity. I loved this book. It was so beautifully written. I don't know if this is Daniel Black's first book, but it was so well done. I couldn't stop listening to it until I finished it. It was just so good. It made me cry a couple of times because it was just so, as a parent, I just can't imagine at this point in my life with my kids. My kids are young, but I can't imagine being estranged from them and just, not knowing where they're living or what they're doing or anything. And having that sort of disconnect from your own child, I just can't imagine it. And some of the scenes, specifically when Isaac was a little boy, that he experienced with his father, were heartbreaking. And so this thing, Jacob was not a perfect person. He acknowledges his faults, but obviously they're still there, He made mistakes, and he's trying to make it right by writing these letters, and it was just beautiful. I loved it so much. And the other thing too that I think was interesting to note was that the author, Daniel Black, in the, the foreword, author's note, he talks about how he had a similar sort of relationship with his own father, and that this was kind of like what he wished his father had done. And so that also kind of made things hit a little differently, knowing that this was such a personal sort of thing for the author. So I highly, highly recommend this. It was amazing, and I gave it 5 stars. All right, guys, so those were the books I read in July. It was an interesting month, to say the least. And like I said, audiobooks were my friend. I don't know, I was just in an audio sort of mood. So yeah, let me know down below what you read in July. I would love to know what everybody was reading, and especially if you have read any of these books, I would love to know what you thought of them. So yeah, that's it. I hope you guys are having a wonderful week, and I will talk with you soon. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.